So Space Marine 2, it's been out now for a couple months. I don't think I've stopped grinding on it since it came out. Conquered lethal difficulty, mastered every single class, got them all up to their max level, and currently just working on grinding out the rest of the guns. But I kind of figured now would be the time to kind of do a breakdown of each individual class and kind of talk about my personal feelings on them, what I noticed from the community and other players that I play with, and also what I like and dislike about each class. And as you can tell by the title today, we're talking about the Vanguard and how they are probably the chaotic neutrals of the Space Marine PvE experience. So let me just say, even though I'm saying that they are chaotic neutral, I do love me a good Vanguard player that's on my team, especially someone who really knows what they're doing on the class. They're such a benefit to the team. But why are they chaotic neutral? Well, let me go ahead and start with that before we get a little bit further into the breakdown. But to me, most Vanguard players, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't even know if they know what they're thinking, other than they just know that if there's an enemy on the field, it's gotta die. I think these people here, they're like just one little propaganda piece away from joining Porn and the World Eaters, because at the rate that they're spilling blood, probably got a pretty nice reward for them from the Blood God. But it always seems that every time I'm playing with somebody who's a main with the Vanguard in that, they have one speed, and it's like Charlie Sheen when, you know, he kind of came back to us and he was a little cracked out. That speed is go. It always feels like these players in that, they're kind of stuck in this time loop where mom's calling them down for dinner, and dinner's ready in 15 minutes, and we got about half an hour left in the game. That being said, though, if they're not downstairs in 15 minutes, Dad's gonna beat that ass, so they're gonna make sure that the rest of us, we got this mission done in 8 minutes. Just one thing I always notice is, you know, I'll be sitting there, I'll be clearing out, you know, some of the few stragglers and that, trying to make sure the team isn't getting shot in the back, and there's always one person that's kind of missing from the fray, and that tends to be our Vanguard player, who's already on the entire next operation. Like, it shows him still in the game, but he's in a completely different world because, like I said, they just seem that they are trying to set a speed record every time that they load into a mission, which isn't a bad thing, because there are definitely times in that where, you know, hey, stuff's getting frustrating and that, you're just ready for the match to be over. Sometimes that little speed boost there helps out. But the other thing too, though, is I never actually know if a Vanguard player is helping me out because he genuinely cares about the teamwork element, or if it's just because it's gonna satisfy his own ends. You know, a lot of times in that, I'll knock down a Major's enemy, and out of nowhere swoops in the Vanguard player just to get that execution so he can top off his ability in that and go flying into the next giant horde of enemies. But I know it sounds like, you know, maybe I'm trashing them a little bit, but like I said, these are players in that where when they know what they're doing with the class, it almost just feels like the game's running on autopilot because they are just destroying everything. And to be honest with you, I kind of think that's how the class is supposed to be played. This is definitely a class that rewards players in that who just love getting into the thick of the action. And yeah, it's just been a really fun class to play. Now, is it personally my main? Am I ever going to become a Vanguard main? Probably not. I would actually say, in terms of personally for me, probably rank this at number 5. Not that I have really anything terrible about it. It's just, I feel like that's what it's good. It's getting into the thick of things, which is fun, but I like the unique playstyle of some of the other classes. And if somebody wants to join into a game and take over the role of a Vanguard player for me, I'm certainly not going to tell them no. But let's kind of break down what all the Vanguard has going on. And then once we get done with that, you know, if you want to stick around, I am just going to finish out the rest of this operation here, but we'll probably go light on the commentary afterwards. This is a private match, and I'm just trying to grind out one of the guns here, so it is just on average difficulty, since this weapon isn't fully maxed out. But yeah, it is a private lobby, so we're just kind of playing with the bots, which, you know, it's always a mixed bag. So what makes the Vanguard a unique class? Why should somebody use it? Well, for starters, the first thing to be aware of, like I said, this is a class that really rewards players for getting into the thick of it. However, it is like the sniper in that you only have 2 pieces of armor. So if you are, you know, grappling into a horde of enemies in that and you slightly misplay, unfortunately, sometimes that can be a quick way in that, you know, to having your teammates having to hurry up and catch up to you and pick you back up. But even though it does have 2 armor pieces, I will say the good thing is unlike the sniper, I do feel that this class has kind of balanced itself out to where you can overcome a lot of the downfalls of that, especially on some of those higher difficulties where, you know, you're going to constantly be, you know, fighting to gain 1 armor piece here and there. I do feel that the Vanguard kind of has that built-in fail-safe to keep you in the fight for as long as possible. On top of that, so the Vanguard comes with 3 different primary weapons. You have the Instigator Bolt Carbine, you have the Oculus Bolt Carbine, which is currently what I'm using, and I will say, when I first used this when the game first came out, I really wasn't super thrilled by it. However, it does seem that after some of the buffs, this has gotten a lot better. The difference between the 2, so both of these are kind of more geared towards your long-range combat. The Instigator is a 3-round burst, kind of high damage, high accuracy, and personally, now, like I said, I'm still ranking this one up, but I don't feel that anything about this has made me say, like, I'm going to put down the Instigator. I do feel that is the better option. However, with how accurate this has become, if you were to just dial in those headshots with this, I definitely feel like you're going to have a good time. Lastly, you also do get the Melta rifle as well, which, if you haven't gotten to use that yet, it's almost the Space Marine equivalent of a shotgun. I know in universe they definitely have something closer to our real-world examples of shotguns, but for the purposes of this game, that is the Melta rifle. And of course, the Melta rifle, it's phenomenal. Whenever you can get up close in that, you can just clear out so many of the Minoris enemies with it. It's phenomenal, which opens up that space for you to just close the gap with the Majoris and even some of the extremist enemies, and just kind of have some nice one-on-one or, you know, 3v1s with them. So, in terms of primary weapons, all of them are usable. For me personally, I like to tailor what my primary is going to be depending on what my teammates are. So if I'm playing with like a bulwark and an assault, I'm probably not going to pick the Melta because those guys are going to be really, really good at managing a lot of stuff from close range. So I'll probably stick more with like the Instigator, or once I get this maxed out, probably even the Oculus. Just that way the team has some sort of range abilities. But, you know, if I am playing with a tactical or like a heavy, something like that, I might end up using the Melta rifle in that just to kind of help with some of that close range support. In terms of sidearms, so originally this class did only have one, and that was the standard bolt pistol, which isn't bad. I would kind of compare it to like a Toyota in that of, you know, it's not the sexiest weapon out there, but it's going to get the job done. It does everything that you want it to do, no more, no less, and sometimes that's perfectly fine. However, with one of the previous updates in that, it has also gained access to the Volcolite pistol, which personally I am not the biggest fan of. I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with it. I just don't like how it kind of handles versus like Majoris or even some of these Minoris enemies. I just think the regular bolt pistol kind of handles that better. What I do enjoy the Volcolite pistol for is more of kind of like the Terminus style enemies. So if you stick around, kind of like the Hive Tyrant at the end of this particular mission, I do feel that it does good damage over time when it's being able to for when it's allowed to be used properly. And the thing with the Volcolite pistol, in case you haven't used it yet, so it's not like a traditional firearm. It is essentially a beam of heated energy that the longer you keep it on target, the more damage it does. In this game, if you keep it on target for a certain amount of time, you are rewarded with a small explosion that can damage nearby enemies. So I would say mess around with both of them, see what you like, fit, you know, whichever one works better for your class, for your play style. For me personally, I like keeping the Volcolite on my Melta class, although I think currently right now I kind of mix them up because I was changing some stuff around. But I just like that due to the Melta having to get up close to stuff. It is a nice way to deal consistent damage to enemies at range to kind of make up for that. Now, in terms of melee options, you do have two, which is a pretty nice thing. You do have the chainsword, which is what I prefer on this particular class. But you also get the combat knife. So to me, the strength with the chainsword is again, it's kind of like the Toyota of, you know, the whole melee department. It's really good at dueling, and it's also really good at kind of clearing out hordes of enemies. I don't think it does either one the best. I think there's better options out there for whichever playstyle you want, but it's not a bad choice. Now, your other option is combat knife, which is definitely more set up for one-on-one dueling. It does very, very well at that. It's got a very generous parry window, especially once you start stacking some of the skills within the Vanguard perpetry and that. It can make getting into melee combat just so much more enjoyable than what it already is. However, the downside is when it comes to kind of clearing out hordes of enemies, you are going to be at a little bit of a disadvantage. Unfortunately, that is one of the things where the combat knife struggles. It can be used. You know, people out there run the sniper a fair bit, but it's definitely something to where I feel like you're going to be needing more support from your team. Then in terms of equipment, kind of as you've been seeing, you do have the grapple launcher, which is phenomenal. I think it's pretty good ability. It's nothing that's too crazy overpowered in of itself, but I think it opens up a lot of different gameplay options that are super unique. It's pretty fair, so there is a minimum and a maximum distance of which it'll work at. I'm not sure what those in-game units kind of account to, but it is fairly generous. So, stuff that is relatively super close, yeah, you're probably not going to be able to grapple onto them. Things that are halfway across the map, yeah, you're not going to be able to get that. But anything that's within picking a fight distance, you're going to be able to get into combat. The other thing that I would throw out about the Vanguard, and this is probably personally my favorite thing about it, is this is the only class in the game that can actually naturally heal itself without the need of a stim kit or some other ability. It's perfect because we just kind of screwed ourselves in there on some of that melee combat, unfortunately. Kind of screwed up. But that being said, once you get your Vanguard up to a higher level than that, you will gain access to a perk that, as long as you are executing Majoris or higher level enemies, you will gain a small little sliver of health back, which is not bad, and definitely does help on some of the higher difficulties where the stim kits and that are not always a guarantee. Also, it does allow you to pass those along to some of your teammates, so for myself in that, you know, I do play with some friends that, I'm not saying that they're not good, but there's a little bit of a skill gap between us in that, and especially on some of those higher difficulties in that. They can keep up, but sometimes it can be a little bit of a struggle, so by playing the Vanguard, I'm still able to kind of heal myself as I need to, but at the same time, they can still have access again to those stim kits, which is going to keep them in the game. They're going to keep having fun, and I do feel that's a very important thing as well. Overall, I think the Vanguard is a very, very solid class. Like I said, it may not be my personal favorite. However, there is not a class in this game that I genuinely dislike. I love them all. I put countless hours on all of them. For me, it's just I feel that there are other classes that do what I like to do better. The one thing I would just say with the Vanguard is, of course, get very good at kind of like the melee combat. Feel comfortable parrying, dodging, stuff like that. Granted, we all mess up. We're all entitled to doing that. You know? I'll be the first to say I think we started off doing pretty good there, and then we kind of fumbled some, you know, right before we got on that elevator there. But definitely get used to parrying, dodging, because this is a class that truly does reward you for getting up close and personal with enemies and that. But that being said, with only having 2 bars of armor and nothing really else in that, some of those small mistakes, they do add up quick, and you can find yourself going down a lot, and that can kind of make the game not fun. Nobody likes going down and, you know, looking at a respawn timer. But other than that, it is a very enjoyable class to play. You know, like I said, the people that play it, I think that they are just, they're out there. They're trying to cause havoc. Apologize there for the brief little pause there. I had to correct something there real quick. But yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on the Vanguard. You know, feel free to comment your opinion on it, what you like about the Vanguard, what you don't feel like about it. Just let me know down in the comments, and we'll catch you next time when we're going to review probably another class. I'm thinking we're going to talk about the sniper. I feel like that's one that deserves to be highlighted. But yeah, feel free to stick around for the remainder of this operation. And we'll catch you next week with our next class breakdown.
And send them sprawling back in. Suppress.
It is difficult to miss this massive eyesore.
I've never seen such an atrocity.
But we blew it up. Message received. Kill the bastard more. Stubborn bastard really is still kicking. I think it is properly angry now. Or scared. It knows we are after it.
So one other thing I did want to throw out is this is a class that can also help your teammates recharge their abilities. So every time you get an execution, you yourself, you do get some time back, or your ability recharges quicker, less time we have to wait for it. However, if you also have, as you can see with my personal setup here, every time my teammates as well do an execution, they get some. The other thing I would also throw out is when you do hit Majora's enemy that's making a call out with the grapple hook, that will also silence their call. So just a couple things there for those of you that stuck around. Again, greatly appreciate you for sticking with me. But also just wanted to throw that out there as well for those of you people that have not played Vanguard yet or are maybe looking to.